Hey folks, welcome back to the program. This is Chris in Pietermaritzburg. Yeah, that's right, down here in the Midlands of KwaZulu-Natal. And I'm at the Jim Green factory where I was kitted out a short while ago. Not to embarrass anybody, but check these out. Whoa, yeah. Those are, which range are those, Gareth?
It's what we call our African Ranger boot.
African Ranger boot. Okay, so can I work in Kruger now?
You can indeed. Yeah, built for many adventures, many miles, and one of our better selling boots.
So I'm here with Gareth Crouch with Jim Green. And if I'm not mistaken, I think your grandfather founded this country, or this company. Yeah. I don't know if he founded this country. It might have been further back, but your grandfather founded this company a number of years ago. Tell us a little bit about that.
That's correct. So we are family run. I'm third generation here at Jim Green. My grandpa, Graham Crouch, and my father, Peter Crouch, were working in the shoe industry in the early 80s. What happened was that my grandpa was an accountant at the shoe factory they were at. My father was the cobbler, factory manager on the floor. And my grandpa saw that things weren't looking so good in the books and said to my dad, listen, we need to break away from this company. And in 1987, September, Crouch Footwear was formed with the idea to make men's formal shoes.
So the Jim Green brand wasn't around at that time?
Jim Green wasn't around at the time. Jim Green was only founded in 1992.
Okay.
Yeah, so what happened in 97, Crouch Footwear was founded. And unfortunately, 91, when I was born, my grandfather passed away. And it was just my dad.
Oh, so you never knew your grandfather?
I was a couple of months old when he passed.
Shame.
Yeah, he got leukemia, and within a couple of months he had passed. So very unfortunate, but I do have his middle name. So yeah, my dad took over.
You're a bit of a legacy then.
I'm a legacy. It's myself. I've got two other brothers, and then my father is still around and also involved in the day-to-day runnings as well.
Now it's a privately held company. It's not on the public stock exchange, correct?
That's correct. Yes. So Jim Green was So let's go back. So Crouch Footwear made men's formal shoes, and then obviously what happened in the early 2000s when everything was going to the east, we couldn't compete. And what happened was that we ended up sending our Crouch Footwear brand we outsourced it to other factories. It is still around today, but a complete standalone company and a complete 180 to the Jim Green brand that we have here in front of us. And the reason you are sitting here because it's a proudly South African made boot. All our materials are 100% sourced in South Africa. The leather, our soles are made in South Africa, and every shoe is made under one roof. We don't outsource any of our production. We are very proud to say that we are one of the best paying factories for our staff. You can actually, in South Africa, in the footwear industry, apply to pay less than the wage rate, which we refuse to acknowledge or to do. So all our employees are on 100% of the wage rate, and obviously, end of the year, we pay bonuses depending on performances.
Well, that's good to hear. So there's a challenge here. If we go back 25 years ago, my numbers aren't 100% correct, but they're close. About 90% of the shoes sold in South Africa 25 years ago were manufactured in South Africa. Only about 10% I think were imported. And clothing was about 80% manufactured here, 20%. Those numbers have flipped around now. A very small percentage of shoes purchased in South Africa actually made in South Africa these days. That must be a huge challenge for you. And before you answer that, I'm going to guess that's one of the reasons why for the men's fashion shoes and the other shoes, those are now produced in Asia, and you've got the Jim Green brand that's proudly South African.
That's correct. And actually, Pietermaritzburg itself was a shoe-making destination. Was. I stand to be corrected, but facts I read a while ago, I think there was something like 35,000 people employed in the shoe industry in Pietermaritzburg. And today, just in the last couple of years, we've seen factories close all around us.
And this is the competition come from Asia, China in particular.
So shoe factories just struggle to compete with the imported stuff. What you can make in China in a day or two takes 2 to 3 months to tool up for you.
And the volume is much greater, so they can get much smaller margins and stay profitable. Exactly.
But what we've decided to do with our Jim Green brand is we've just stuck to our roots. We refuse to decrease the quality, in a country where for the past 10 years it's been an uphill battle for all companies. We stuck to making the boots as best as we can. We only use premium leathers. We make sure that our customer support is the best you can get as well. And that's just a very nice add-on. When we do a little walk, or when you saw when we were walking through the factory here, guys come drop their shoes off here, they can get them resold.
I saw that. There was a pair of shoes that obviously someone's had for a very long time, and they look new. They've been, I guess, they were resold obviously, but it looks like the leather may have been treated while they're here too.
Exactly. Yeah, so we can have some boots 20 years old, resold 2 to 3 times. It really just depends on how you care for the boots.
That's resold, not resold. He's not selling them again. They're just getting new soles put on. Just so we're clear on that, folks, because I know some people comment, you're reselling used shoes? No. People send their shoes back here to get them restored.
Yes.
There you go.
But yeah, Jim Green hasn't been easy sailing as well. As you know, when it wasn't for Jim Green, our factory wouldn't be here. Luckily, we had the label, we had the local manufacturing, we had the lines.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Gareth, but you'd still be in business, but you wouldn't be selling South African shoes. Because the Crouch brand would still be around, yes?
The Crouch brand is obviously a standalone business, but what was happening with the Jim Green label is that we were very reliant on orders from large corporations, large telecom companies, and what was happening from 2010 onwards is that those were slowly starting to fall away, and that was where the bulk of our business was. We were mostly a B2B company. Guys would come buy the steel toe caps, buy the boots for fighting fires, etc., etc. And when I joined the company in 2014, obviously, the father's son, you walk in here, you kind of get given all kinds of weird and wonderful jobs. I worked in the factory for a bit, worked on the Crouch footwear side, but as I explained to you earlier, I have a big love for the outdoors and safari.
Well, you used to work in Kruger, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. I used to work as a safari guide in the Kruger. I absolutely loved it, and yeah, as I said, my father gave me a call the one day and said it's time to come home. So I came back, and yeah, I took a huge liking to our Jim Green brand. It's outdoors, it was everything that I really liked. And one of the things that I was gifted when I came here was our lady who did the HR. She was actually just as a side thing doing our website.
Is it the same lady I met earlier?
No.
It's a different one.
Different lady. So our online, as we know, online in the last 10 years, especially post-corona, has just boomed. But here we are, a shoe factory in the middle of Maritzburg. Why would we ever try and run an online shop?
Thank goodness you did.
Yeah. So anyway, I decided let me do this thing, and I started doing the emails. We started rebuilding the website, and one thing I noticed was that just everyone that emailed in was like, I had my boots 3-4 years, absolutely love them. Where can I buy a pair? And I would obviously send them in the right direction. And then we had a little WhatsApp cell phone. I had the email. I opened the social media channels, and we're putting a bit of time and effort into this online shop. And I thought to myself around 2018, I said, an online shop trying to sell in South Africa is always going to be a bit of an uphill battle. We've been
you got to take a lot. You got to compete with.
You're competing with a lot of people, and the consumer is naturally going to be a bit slower to take to the online shopping market. Whereas here you look to the world, and you've got the likes of America, the UK, Europe, all these big economies, that online shopping is a very
well established and accepted. Yeah,
accepted. So why try and only sell online in South Africa? And that's what sparked the idea. And the first thing I said, well, America is the biggest economy in the world. They love boots.
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
And we need to get some boots over to America. Now, that was not a very easy feat, as I was explaining to you earlier. Just to set up and comply in America was a good couple of months of research and doing the right thing, and then finding the 3PL to distribute your boots, finding the people passionate enough to be invested in
and
boots.
Push your brand.
Yeah, you're not selling. If you were selling, I joke now because we sell shoe polish. I said in my next life I want to be a shoe polish salesman, because 0 returns, 0 questions, one size fits all. So you can't just partner with any 3PL. You need guys who are passionate about it. When the boots come back, they check that they package nicely, put back in the boot. The shoelaces are all in. The insert is still.
There's a lot involved.
They haven't been worn, and you really are. So our guys, they're very fortunate to our guys on the ground there in Virginia. They are very actively involved in it, and our relationship is more of a very good partnership rather than them just being a 3PL.
So I want to before we talk about the Jim Green brand, and we're going to talk about that Jim Green brand in just a few moments. But before we get to that, I do want to ask you something about the Kruger. And so, as a safari guide, I'm sure you had some unusual experiences, something odd, whether it was a black mamba experience or it was elephants or maybe it was a leopard. I don't know. Can you tell us a story maybe about the strangest thing that ever happened to you without revealing who the guilty were? Is there anything really something had to happen while you were there?
I've had two. Yeah, I think I've had probably a very silly question, and then I've also put myself in a bit of a weird position as well.
A silly question from a tourist or what?
Yeah, I mean, you naturally get.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
if I were to go into an environment that I'm not familiar
Sure.
with, it would.
But from your perspective, it was a very silly question. Can you tell us that question without embarrassing someone?
Yeah, so we were obviously I had my guests and they were out and they were wondering, I was trying to explain to them how, you get the Kruger National Park and you get Masai Mara and you get all these different areas, but in between that there's obviously human populations and there's lots of human-wildlife conflict. So I was trying to explain how sometimes you got to move animals from one reserve to the other reserve to change all their genetics and mix it
for
up.
diversity. Yeah.
For diversity.
It's like they move rhinos, they move elephants around. Yeah.
So my guest was, she was sitting there and I could see she was thinking and she said, so Gareth, how do you move these animals? Do you put them on a leash? And now here I'm thinking, you got a couple elephants and rhinos
That's
on a leash.
exactly how we do it. It's a really big leash, but we walk with them all the way to Botswana, to the Okavango, where they need more elephants. They'll need more elephants there.
Yeah,
It's a lot of elephants in Botswana, but you get my point.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a silly question. Okay,
Yeah.
now what's the one where you were a little bit embarrassed?
Where I was embarrassed, I was still very new to the industry, and I had
That's usually when it happens, when you're new to
I
something.
had an American product called the Leatherman, and
Leatherman, great knife.
great story as well. I don't know if
Okay.
you've listened to the story of Leatherman, but it's I think it took him like 7 years before he even sold his first one.
Yeah, it was quite a journey for him.
Yeah, so anyway, here I'm a new safari guide, and I'm quite fancy with all my new stuff, including a Leatherman.
You're all kitted out. You got a Leatherman, okay.
And we're on a walking tour. I was the backup safari guide. I wasn't qualified enough to be the lead guide at the time, but as the backup, your job is to stop and tell the guests some interesting stories and whatnot. And anyway, I pick a branch off a tree, and it's quite nice to talk on the different tannins and the stuff that the trees produce. And I whip out my Leatherman and my knife, and I try and slice the
I know there was this
the
going.
bark off, and it slipped, and I almost took my entire tip of my finger off. But now here I am in the middle of the bush. There's
Bleeding.
blood gushing everywhere. I got my 375 in my right hand, and all I did was wind it into my shirt, because the whole time the guests were asking, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm fine. But there was this huge.
It's just a flesh wound. It was just a flesh wound.
It was pretty deep. Probably I don't know if I got stitches.
Didn't cut the tendons, did you?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
But
okay. But it's embarrassing nonetheless.
It was very embarrassing, especially when the guy with the rifle and meant to now use all these things. And
All right. Well, now that we've proved that Gareth is human and not a business machine, let's shift back to the Jim Green brand. So on the heels here is burned into it, or stamped into it. I assume it's burned in.
embossed, yeah.
Embossed. Yeah. Okay. So I'm not an industry person, so I used the wrong term. So you've got the emblem on here, and so this Jim Green. I mean, people think about South Africa. They think about a brand coming South, they might think about something that had an Afrikaans name or a Zulu name or maybe a Xhosa or maybe even a Khoisan name.
Yeah.
But Jim Green is none of those things. It's like an Anglophone thing. So where does the name Jim Green come from, and what's the story behind it?
So Jim Green originally came from the Midlands Meander, which is just up the road here from Pietermaritzburg. And the Jim Green is the little frog on the back. That's on all our boots and boxes. And he's quite an interesting, cheeky little chap, because it's a nickname given to a local frog that is found in the rivers and dams here in the Midlands Meander. And it's used by questionable fishermen to hook a winning catch. And the nickname is the Jim Green.
Okay.
So yeah, he's an interesting guy. Guys, everyone loves our logo.
It's really cool. It's right there on the shirt.
I know. I grew up with it. I mean, when you grow up with something, it's just
something
every
you
day.
know. Yeah.
And everyone, especially when we started exporting to America, they say, "Yo, we love your logo. We love your logo." And I actually stopped and was like, "This is a really interesting logo." Now you've got a frog with a top hat holding a rifle. There's something you don't see.
No, you don't see that every day. So that's the story behind that. So it's interesting because I want to talk to you about the African Growth and Opportunity Act. Before we get to that, because that's business related, I want to tell a quick anecdotal story, and I'm going to try and see what happens now. When I went to Uppington in 2022, and I met with Vinny DeToya and the fellows up there, we had campfire stories with the colonels, myself as a retired colonel and the former South African colonels. And there was live broadcast, and I was wearing my boots. I showed you the boots earlier. And all people talked about for 2 hours was my boots. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to do an experiment. I'm going to wear my Jim Greens when I go up there this time and see if everybody talks about my Jim Greens for 2 hours. That would be interesting. So let's shift to the African Growth and Opportunity Act. Now, for the past 25 years, the United States has given duty-free access to our market to countries in Africa on the proviso that they meet certain governance standards. Now, they're not required to, it's voluntary, but if they put so much money in education and healthcare and democratic governance and things like that, gender-based violence, then the U.S. says, okay, we'll let you ship your goods duty-free. For Americans, it's not a big deal. We don't make much in the way of tariffs before the Trump reciprocal tariffs from African countries. But it's a huge deal for many businesses in Africa because they automatically get an artificial advantage that lets them get into the U.S. market more competitively than, say, Asia or other producers. So that is it's a piece of public law that must be renewed every 5 years. It expires in 2025. I see no interest in Congress. I haven't even seen a bill proposed to extend it or renew it, which means that the African Growth and Opportunity Act, or AGOA, is going to expire and that advantage will be gone. Now, that'll be painful for producers in Africa, particularly South Africa, which has been the biggest beneficiary of this, about $3 billion a year in trade. But right now, unfortunately, President Trump has put in place these reciprocal tariffs. And right now, that means 10% tariff for South African goods going into America. And if the government doesn't talk to the Trump administration within the 90 days, which they haven't done yet, that means a 31% tariff. That's going to be difficult for folks. Maybe the Jim Green brand may be able to survive that, at least in the short term. But has AGOA, first couple questions for you now that I've laid that out for the audience. Has AGOA been beneficial and help you expand your business? And obviously it sounds like it's working well in America. And if you lose AGOA and you wind up with tariffs, is that going to be a big challenge for you?
Yeah, so that was a big thing, especially when starting out. Our factory wasn't registered as AGOA approved. You have to have
There's standards you have to
meet the standards. One of the standards is 100% made in South Africa, and I think it's something like 70% of your raw materials need to be in the product, which was very easy for us because our leather,
everything in this shoe comes from South Africa.
Everything is made in South Africa. So it was quite an easy one for us to tick all the boxes required for the AGOA agreement. And basically I just took a couple of trips back and forward and invoices and everything to SARS, and we managed to get that AGOA agreement. At the same time, I can't remember what was happening, but someone said something stupid and our exchange rate shot up. So between
that happens from time to time.
Yeah. So between the duty-free exports, our exchange rate being favorable, we were able to get into the US market at a really well-priced boot. And I think you've seen and what you've got on your feet, you're going to see it's a great, and especially what everyone says outside of South Africa, it's just a really great value for money boot. You know, we don't take any shortcuts. We do, I'm sure we'll dive into some of the specs a little bit later, but the boot is as best we can make it. So obviously this tariffs and whatever's going on in America at the moment is of huge concern to us. But at the same time, what can we do as a little shoe factory here in Pietermaritzburg? And I think, factories like us, small brands that rely on economies like the US or various other economies, it's very, I don't like to think about it, but it's something that's very important for us because we've been exporting now to America for 5 years, and we went from doing 30 pairs, air mailing them in just to test them, to doing containers of boots, where now today it makes up, depending on what's happening here, it makes up 40 to 60% of our daily production. But it is a big chunk of our production. But the most important thing about having the US market and our loyal following is that when we come out with a new shoe like this moccasin boot, it's just the energy and the enthusiasm and the willingness to support it and get involved. It allows us to tool up for a boot like this. It allows us to pre-make some of the boots to send over there. And one of the reasons we're able to get into the US market is it's a great value for money boot. The whole idea when we went into the US market is I wanted to be the best alternative to a US made boot. Just like we're super proud about our made in South Africa, we want to respect. And, there's some really well-made, US-made products. So I don't want to step on the toes of American-made boots and what they're doing. So we want to keep our own handwriting. We want to stick to what we know. We want to be the best alternative to an American-made boot. So yeah, this AGOA, and I mean, if we get hit with the full 30% tariffs, we're going to be counting our cents and, nothing.
Making sure the lights are turned off when you don't need them. Yeah, exactly. No doubt about that. In fact, we don't need lights in here. Turn them off. No, we're just kidding. We'll go. But actually, this camera's pretty good. We'll still be able to see. All right. So AGOA definitely has been a benefit to the company. But let me mention this. Okay, so you said 40% of production is going to the States right now.
Yeah.
So that's a huge market for you.
Huge.
I mean, is it your biggest? Is South Africa bigger or no?
They're two very different markets. South Africa is more B2B, so guys will come here and buy 100 pairs of steel toe caps.
But your individual sales, that's a big market for you.
Yes.
Okay. So I think you said 150 people are working for you. Is that right?
Yeah, 100 plus minus 100.
Okay, about 150 people here. And that would be nothing today if you hadn't reinforced the Jim Green brand and went with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, but okay. See, here's the thing about economies that people have to understand, and I don't know the numbers, so I'm going to guess. And you can tell me, how wrong I am. The eyelets are made here. The laces are made not here, but in South Africa. So the leather is from South Africa. All this material comes from South Africa. That must include a business ecosystem of more employment suppliers at few. So I would guess that all the way back to the farm where the cattle are slaughtered and the leather is cured, maybe another 2,000 people might at least employ just because you're producing these shoes.
No, exactly. The knock-on effect from this is
lunch over? Is that what that was?
Lunch is over.
All right, okay. We missed lunch.
Yeah, so I mean,
the knock-on effect.
Yeah, the knock-on effect is huge, and I mean, you see all our suppliers, everyone down the ladder will be affected by this, and I just go back to ourselves here. You've seen we've just bought a brand new factory. We've taken delivery of brand new machines. We've gone and spent a whole bunch of money tooling up for this new demand. Not only new demand, but to keep making shoes that we can compete with in the world's biggest economy. Here we are, little shoe factory in Pietermaritzburg, competing with the likes of Red Wing and these hundreds of millions, I don't even know, billions of dollars.
LL Bean, companies like that. Yeah.
So I take my hat off to our team here, being able to put something together that we can compete with these huge brands. But yeah, this is going to be. It's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds. I'm saying if we can get away with between a 10 and 20% tariff, I think we could survive that.
But that's not ideal because that leaves you less capital to reinvest in the business, to grow, to get more jobs, and also maybe pay your employees more and maybe take home a little bit more money for yourself. I think that's interesting. Let's talk a little bit about your ranges here. So the one I'm wearing, first off, before we go any further, I got to say that honestly, I understood the shoes were durable and that's why they're popular. But this is incredibly comfortable out of the box. I mean, usually put a pair of leather shoes on, and you're like, okay, I got to break the shoe in and spread it. But I mean, I put them on, and I've been wearing them now for an hour or so, and they were perfect out of the box.
Yeah,
I can't. There's very few shoes that I've tried on, and certainly very few boots that I'm like, okay, that's perfect. I mean, okay, that's good enough is usually the feeling. But these are perfect.
Yeah.
Is comfort one of the things that people talk about?
Comfort is one of them, but yes, boots are known to be a bit of a hard breaker and a couple blisters here and there, but this African Ranger boots has just been a really great story all around. So basically what we wanted to do with it is we came out with this boot because we came out with that initiative. For every 10 we sell, we donate a pair to a Ranger in need, and thinking we'll just do a few pairs here and there. We are coming up to over 100,000 pairs of African Rangers sold. And by this time next year, we'll hopefully have put on feet those 10,000 pairs that we have pledged to donate. We have already done close on 6,000 pairs on feet, and it's a logistical nightmare getting these boots to these teams. They work in some of the harshest, deepest,
most remote
places.
The Virunga Forest in Rwanda, and the DRC, the Masai Mara, places like that, the Serengeti. So these boots that you're donating are going to go to people who are protecting wildlife and also making it available for people to see. And I'm guessing as well, probably to anti-poachers as well.
Yes, exactly. So we do this boot, and we do a much taller boot as well. what happened, because it was such a successful story, we actually were, we wanted to give people the right boot. We're not going to say, have this boot because it's free. We want to say, well, what type of boot do you need to do your job best?
Sure.
So we've come up with various variations. So just an example, this boot here is used by guys who fly the microlights for anti-poaching. Because it's such a nice, comfortable ankle boot, they get lots of feel on the
they
pedals.
can do the pedals,
They
easily.
can do the pedals
Rather than
easily.
have restricting around your ankle.
It's also a great boot for guys that are in and out of vehicles. You don't need a big 8-inch boot when you're driving and then hopping out to do little excursions. So, the African Ranger has been a great boot. And to touch on your comments on the comfort, we designed this boot with 3 main focus area: comfortable, versatile, and affordable. So,
yeah, that's incredible. I mean, they're really, it's well designed. I mean, I think, we take our feet for granted as human beings. Most of the time, most people do. I know ladies will jam their feet into shoes just to look attractive sometimes. Men tend to, in my experience, just go and put the boot on and go, okay, that's fine. It'll break in. And then they have a few blisters a few days later and they're like the right pair of boots. But these are pretty amazing. I mean, how long has this range been out?
Close on 3 years now. It's been, all our boots are wide fitting as well. Going back to the comfort, your feet weren't made to be short and narrow. These shoes aren't made to stand out and, when you're going out dancing or something like that. These are made for the outdoors, and after 2-3 hours on your feet swell out and your toes need space to breathe. And that's, we often, guys will email in and say, why are you making your boots so wide? And we say, well, that's, if you want narrow boots, go and buy some narrow boots. We are wide fitting, built to last, resealable.
And something you can wear for hours at a time.
Exactly.
In harsh conditions.
So this boot, African Ranger, this was the original version that we came out with, which, just to highlight a few specs on it, has a reinforced facing, a genuine toe cap. Lots of companies
just stitch it.
They just stitch. There's actually no other leather under here. There's a thermoplastic toe puff as well that gives it extra support. We've reinforced, got some ankle padding for comfort. We run this boot with a polyester woven midsole and a leather midsole option, so you can choose either lightweight or heavy. And then we have a number of sole options that we offer on this boot. And in the next couple of weeks, we're actually going to be offering this boot as a safety toe option in America. So you can
work boots.
You can wear it as a work boot. So not only made for Africa and safari guides, but if you love the boots and want to support the initiative, you can wear it in the workplace or on the job site.
All right, so let's get to this odd boot. Now, I'm not buying this boot because somebody cut it in half. But seriously, this is a brand. Was this developed because of the American market specifically, or did you just an idea you came up with? Because it looks kind of like a loafer down here, but it's a moccasin, and then like a boot up here. So tell us a little bit about this one.
Yeah, so this is a great story in reference to the American market, and also just a thanks to them. So if it wasn't for the American market, we wouldn't be holding this boot in front of us.
Or half a boot anyway.
It's an extremely expensive boot to make, very time consuming to make it, and it's a very well-known style in America. So naturally it would have been a popular choice over there. And not to say that South Africans or the rest of the world wouldn't want it, but we wouldn't be able to justify tooling up to make this boot if we didn't have that initial punch from the US market. So yes, we've sold, of the boots we sold of this, maybe 30 to 40% are going to the rest of the world.
But the idea was the American markets was what prompted it.
Exactly. And I think what the best thing about this boot is that they are going to love this boot. It's taken us a year to develop it. It's a genuine mark construction, so you can see here how the leather folds under and upwards. We did make a full video on this construction. If I try to break this boot now, spec by spec, we could be going for
an hour. Let's not do the whole spec.
But
they can watch that video on the Jim Green site.
Long story short, genuine mock toe boot. Probably one of the best value for money mock toe boots you're going to get, while we still have all our favorable trade agreements. If we get hit with that 30% tariff, all of a sudden now you're competing with American-made.
And this boot becomes very difficult to sell then.
Becomes a difficult sell because it is a very expensive boot. It's one of our most expensive in the range. Right now we'll see how it goes. We're going to get all these boots out of the door before that 90-day window closes. And then, we'll regroup then and see see where the wind takes us.
Brilliant. So before we wrap up, I want to say this. You're describing the business, you're describing the boots, you showed me the factory floor. He actually was the guy who put my boots on me, like I was going to shoe store. I felt kind of bad. The guy running the place is doing it, but he says he does it all the time. You really enjoy the bush, and that was important to you in your life. I think you went to Stellenbosch University, and then went up to the bush. But you got a phone call from Dad one day, and come back here. What I have to say is, from my perspective, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this, but you seem to have found your element. Maybe, I suspect you still miss the bush. You'd like to get out there more often, but you really seem your element here with Jim Green shoe brand, and almost like you're prophesizing for the brand. I mean, that makes sense since you work here, but to me, it seems like you've really taken this on. Do you feel that way?
I do. I kind of eat, live, and sleep the brand. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. Some weekends you end up watching videos and not watching your videos and learning.
Oh no, that's not a bad thing. Watch my videos. Tell all your friends.
Yeah, so I think I've really found, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Exactly. It's not work if you love it.
Exactly. So it's been, I won't lie, it's been a very hard 5 years, especially I've been heading up the US market. So come 1-2 p.m. South Africa time, when you've just done your day here at the factory and
it's just getting started, that's
off, they're just starting to wake up. And those first 2-3 years were tough because I was the guy in the emails, I was the guy doing this, developing the new styles. But you've seen here today how we've progressed and got employed some guys to help, and everyone's very like-minded and very passionate about the brand as well. So we're very fortunate to have the team involved. And as I mentioned to you, I'm hoping to be the brand of the Boots of Africa's Rangers one day and have that stamp. The whole idea is that you get these high-paid basketball players and rugby players and football players, wearing billions of dollars just to promote Nike or Adidas, but who's really put their stamp on the Rangers of Africa? Who's the one that's saying our boots are this tough and this durable that Africa's Rangers wear them? So should you guys. So that's kind of where it's a very long-term marketing goal. At the same time, the boots have to do the job. We're 3 years in, and the guys are loving the boots. Guys are now requesting for boots where guys can't, where there's no room for more donations to them. They're actually now buying the boots to give to their guys. So it's been a very successful initiative. I'll be honest, I have not had time to promote it nearly as much as we should. But that day it will come once we can push it a bit more.
Well, that point about the toughness and being the Africa Ranger brand, the power of advertising, the power of a brand being linked with something like durability and comfort and out in the bush sort of thing can be incredible. And I'll tell you an example. In the 1980s, I bought a Casio G-Shock because of a commercial. There was a commercial in which they skated up and down the ice rink with a Casio using it as a hockey puck, and then they shot it into the goal, and the goalie, and he opened his glove, and it was still ticking. And because of that commercial, I bought a Casio G-Shock. And until, like most people, I don't wear watches anymore because they're mobile phones, but I still have Casio. So my G-Shock still got a battery in 14 years ago, it's still running. But that durability really can sell a brand to people, especially an American consumer, because Americans don't like cheap crap that falls apart. We like durable things, and these shoes are incredible. So Gareth Crouch, I want to thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for showing me around the factory and introducing me to all your staff. And I wish you the best of luck, and I hope that the Trumpster sorts out the reciprocal tariff thing, because I'd hate to see businesses in South Africa damaged, especially the Jim Green brand.
Yes, and thanks for stopping by. It was good to have you here. And just to the viewers, I actually reached out to Chris saying I love your channel, and thanks for all the correct information. As a brand operating in South Africa that relies on America, it's nice to have a reliable source of info of what's actually going on. It's been a pleasure having you here, and I guess the stars just aligned that you happen to be passing through.
Just literally happened to be passing through, and then swung in, and then here we are. So I think one thing I'm going to want to do is, if it's all right, I'm going to ask now. I'd like to visit the Virginia operation and do a report from there.
You're more than welcome to.
There you go. So before we go, where can people find it? I mean, is it on Amazon in the U.S.? And what are your websites? Do you have a .co.za website and a .jimgreen.com, something like that? Just let the viewers know where they can find these incredible outdoor shoes.
Yeah, so if you are in South Africa, if you go onto jimgreenfootwear.co.za, we do have a stockist page there. Some of our more well-known stockists are Outdoor Warehouse, Safari and Outdoor, Philly Boutiques, but you can shop online as well.
Oh, you have in Safari Outdoors?
Yes.
I shop there in Pretoria.
So we, unfortunately, because our range is so huge, it's impossible for anyone to carry the entire range.
Sure.
So Safari and Outdoor, they carry our African Ranger naturally in a couple of variations, and just depends who you stop into. And then rest of the world, if you go to, we've got a little link tree where you can click on, but we've got websites in America, jimgreenfootwear.com, and then we've got Australia, UK, and Europe. So they're all jimgreenfootwear something. There are a couple of fake websites flying around at the moment, so be careful of those, because sometimes it's Jim Green Footwear Boots, and which is not. Or there's even the one floating around called African Ranger Boots. That's our proper.
Well, look, I know how that is. I mean, people are putting things up like Chris Wyatt T, like I'm Indian, Wyatt T. Yeah, that's not me. That's fake. Actually, some people are hoodwinked by those things. So be very careful when you're out there looking. Look for the genuine article. Gareth, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers.